of Council. Item 15.4.1, Councillor Mason, support for basic income.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Halifax Regional Council request a letter from the Mayor to the Prime Minister, Ministers, and Premier of Nova Scotia calling on the Government of Canada to implement Guaranteed Livable Income, ensuring everyone has sufficient income to meet their needs, which would go a long way toward eradicating poverty and homelessness, alleviating the pressures on municipalities to use their limited resources to fill gaps in our failing social safety net. I so move. I'd like to thank Council, the Mayor, and everybody. I'm going to talk about three things, and I'm going to try and do it in 5 minutes, and you know I'm bad at that, but I'll do the best I can. What is it, who supports it, and why it matters to municipalities? So basic income is a periodic, unconditional cash payment sent to individuals from the government, and it ensures individuals can meet their basic needs and live with dignity regardless of their work status. And so we've been talking about universal basic income in Canada for 50 years. And we have, roughly two types that people are talking about: an income level or a demo grant, where everyone would get a cash payment regardless of income, and it would get clawed back at taxes if you didn't need it. Or we could also talk about the basic income guarantee, which is a type of universal basic income that is available but only provided to those who need it. BIG creates an income floor beneath everyone's feet that eliminates the risk of falling into poverty should a disaster strike, a flood, a fire, a drought, a pandemic, job loss, or technological disruptions that force people out of one job to retrain for another. And so some people refer to this as a livable income, to convey the amount of income needed so that people can live in dignity and security, and that it's greater than what is needed to simply meet minimum basic needs. And so this is not a new idea, and it's interesting to have a look through the political history of this. Right now, the Green Party and NDP call for basic income in their platforms. The Liberal Party does not have a commitment to basic income, but I believe the Mayor will be speaking to the fact that the Liberal Party has in fact been supporting this for some time, and that he was involved with that in his time on the Hill. The Conservative platform does not have basic income, and yet historically they're the strongest supporters of basic income. Just around 2 years ago, former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney wrote his opinion piece outlining an agenda for Canadian greatness in the Globe and Mail. And one of his suggestions, one of his covenants for this agenda was that priority examination of the politics articulated by Hugh Segal to guarantee a basic income for those living in poverty. And Hugh Segal, I think we all know, was the Chief of Staff for Conservative Premier Davis and then Conservative Premier Brian Mulroney, and then he was a senator, and he was hired by the Liberals in Ontario provincially in 2016, and he designed Ontario's basic income pilot. And he said, the appeal of basic income is that it would replace an entire patchwork of social services, potentially including welfare, income, unemployment insurance, seniors' pensions that can be costly to deliver. And then this is the key for me, why I've supported this since the 90s. It would end the micromanagement by provincial civil servants and raise the dignity of low-income citizens. The advantage is you eliminate the judgmental aspect of social services, government bureaucrats deciding if you qualify or not. And so, the history of this, I'm doing all right for time, is that we have introduced some measures of guaranteed income, the old age security and guaranteed income supplement in the 60s, the new national child benefit system set up federally and provincially and territorial in the 90s. And we have examples of the positives that come from this. The 1970s MINCOME pilot between the Government of Canada and Manitoba happened for 4 years, and there's tremendous data that shows that there was tremendous positive benefits. What happens when you give someone who only has a little bit of time to go out and work a basic income is that they work the time that they're able, right? The single mom with 2 kids can take a job for 4 hours a day when the kids are at school or whatever, and you lever it so there's an incentive to continue to work by not clawing back 100% of every dollar that's earned. There was former Senator Segal designed the 2017 Government of Ontario pilot, where 4,000 recipients between the age of 18 and 64 received basic income, and they did very well by it, but it was cancelled when the government changed. In 2019, the inquiry on missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls called for a basic income to prevent the worst impacts of systemic racism, sexism, and colonialism. And here's why we're here today. This brings us to today, is that the government of Prince Edward Island, the Conservative government of Prince Edward Island, which now has a majority, continues to want to have the federal government work with them to implement and start a basic income province-wide. This was something that was generated during the coalition government between the PCs and the Greens. Why does this matter for municipalities in the 4 seconds I have left? Evidence suggests this is from the case that's attached to the thing I helped get the national group of councillors together to discuss, and we've been working on that for almost a year, and the mayor's staff supported that, and we had support from GRIA here, and but I want to read what it says in the very last section. Evidence suggests that the federal funded basic income is not only feasible in Canada, but could bring significant benefits at the municipal level. Research supports the financial feasibility of a basic income in Canada, along with its capacity to foster diverse social, health, and economic outcomes. Municipalities represent an important voice in social policy decisions at all levels. They are often on the front lines, working to ensure that residents and communities lead happy, healthy, sustainable, and productive lives. A federal-funded basic income, complemented by other social support services, is well-positioned to support municipalities in achieving this. You know, we are in a social crisis right now. Without programs like this, without new and innovative programs, they will only get worse, and we will continue at the front end of first response in municipalities to have to deal with stuff we're fundamentally unequipped to deal with because people are falling into poverty and have no hope. So I hope Council will support this. I look forward to hearing from you on this, and thank you for indulging me today.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cleary.
What he said. And a little bit more. I mean, the big stumbling block has always been, well, I mean, it's weird too, because you have agreement on the right and the left and the center for different reasons. But when you get down to it, most agree that a basic income that either complements, supplements, or replaces, because you can't replace all of them, like things like CPP is a pension plan, you can't replace that, but you can supplement them, but then you wouldn't need the OAS supplement. You wouldn't need, there's a bunch of other things you can get rid of, but it only works from a financial feasibility if the province and the feds work together on it. Because one level of government can't just all of a sudden go, hey, we're going to do this, like the feds can't do it, and then the province keep all the money they spend on all the things they do, from income assistance to everything else. And so what I'm excited about is this discussion. It's funny, because when I worked for Joe Clark, when he became leader of the PC party again nationally in 1998, this was something we actually started working on policy. And it was, when I was first introduced to it, it was like, really? We're gonna revisit this nugget? But then as we got into it, the more we looked at it, the more it made sense. And so this keeps coming back. When CERB came in 2020, I remember the discussion just sort of popped up again. Everyone was talking about, well, if we could do this, and this is kind of like a basic income, providing that floor for people. Of course, you would have to do things, as Councillor Mason said, look at the clawbacks, make sure you have an incentive to work, all those kind of things. But if more municipalities, if more groups, if more citizens pressure our provinces and the federal government to discuss this, to look at this, we might actually make some headway, finally, on this kind of important, universal social safety net and economic development driver. And so I'll support this. You know, we send a lot of letters to a lot of people. Hopefully this will be one that is, along with many others, and many other people and groups writing individually. And hopefully that makes some difference. So I support what Councillor Mason has put on the floor here. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Mason. I fully support this. In 1989, there was a promise that child poverty would end in Canada by the year 2000. And the latest report from Policy Alternatives, the 2021 report card on child and family poverty in Nova Scotia, is the worst in the last 30 years for Nova Scotia. So we have a lot of work to do. Almost 25% of all children in Nova Scotia are living in poverty. So I commend you. I hope that people are listening at other levels of government. We have to address the situation of poverty in this province, and this is one way that we as a municipality can stand up and voice our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. I wasn't going to speak on this, but I am now that Councillor Mason has challenged me to. I don't speak on behalf of any party, I can guarantee you that, but, I've long believed that we've spent a lot of time and a lot of money in this country sustaining poverty and very little money eradicating poverty. All the programs we have seem to be meant to keep people just below where they can survive, with one exception. Canada has one of the best rates in the world of seniors poverty. There are seniors in poverty, largely single women who have not had a good relationship in the past. But our poverty rate among seniors is among the lowest in the world. I think it's third lowest in the OECD. And that's because we bought in a basic income for seniors years ago, the OIS and the GIS, particularly the Guaranteed Income Security measures. So, the cause of poverty-related issues, homelessness, health inequality, education inequality, environmental inequality, it seems pretty evident, but it's true. The cause of that is lack of income. And so I'm always very reluctant to tell other orders of government how to do their business. We're advising what we think, and I think it's important that this be something that's considered. I really do. I think it's time. Probably would cost us money, but as Councillor Cleary said, we need to keep some of our social constructs in place, but many of them would collapse into this basic income system and provide people in a country like ours the opportunity to have a chance to at least have the opportunity for a better life. A number of people, I did work with Hugh Segal when I was a parliamentarian. Art Eggleton was another one who was a strong supporter of this. No less a progressive than Richard Nixon seriously looked at a basic annual income in 1969 and 70 as a way to improve productivity. Some people think it will reduce productivity because you're giving people an income. You're giving people an opportunity. So I believe in it. And the measures such as the child, the child benefit and things like that have been helpful. Introducing national $10 a day child care. These are all important measures. But I think for me, I think this is an important step. And, without any ill words to anybody, I just commend it to the federal and provincial governments for their serious consideration. It should not be a political issue. I don't believe it is. You've seen the range of people who've supported it. But it is an issue of equality, so I think it makes sense. Councillor Mason?
Yes, very briefly to close. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for those words, and everyone who spoke, and Council for voting on this now. I want to build on what the Mayor said. I can only think of two things where the right and the left agree in this province and federally. And the only other one is that great moment about 11 years ago where CPAWS as the kind of progressive left and AIMS as the kind of progressive right had the press conference saying, we need to get rid of property tax and move to income tax for municipalities, right? There aren't a lot of places where there's a general agreement across the ideological spectrum, and this is one of them. And I think the social pressures that we are seeing day to day on the ground in downtown and throughout all of the municipality and the country, are telling us that it's time to act, and this is one of the ways that we should act. So I'd ask for your support. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council.
All right, colleagues, ready for the question? Okay, we're going to redo the votes until we get a result we like.
Just keep voting. How much do you get? It's not like that. Yeah. Are you okay? Okay. Voting completed.
Okay, that motion is carried. Thank you, colleagues. We will move to Councillor Mason, replacement of a 50-meter pool in HRM.